Welcome to the Buds and Reality Show, the number one Liberty podcast out of Detroit. I am Shaun Collins, the guy with a lot to say, and we have our guest, Mr. Zach Kaiser from the Legacy Right. How you doing, my friend?
Oh, eight. So yeah, fellow Michiganer, welcome. Welcome in. Thank you for having
O
me.
H O H O H. Stop it. We know you're an Ohio guy and you're wearing your Ohio State hat and whatever, blah, blah, blah. If any of you don't understand the Michigan and Ohio State rivalry, you guys are living under a rock. Seriously, it's the biggest rivalry
The
in all of sports. It's not just college football. It's
mhm.
the biggest rivalry of all of sports. But you want to
It's
know
the
what's
greatest
funny?
rivalry. It's the
It is.
greatest
It
rivalry.
is the greatest rivalry. You are
Hmm.
correct. You're definitely
Hmm.
correct. And actually, Michigan as a whole owns you guys. Just saying.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Whatever.
rub it in.
But
Rub it in. Who owns the series since 2000?
we don't need to go there
And
because it's you guys by
that's
far. It is you guys
yeah,
by far. But you want to know what? It's funny that we start the show like this because it's civil discourse. And we need
exactly.
civil discourse when it
Hmm.
comes to sports. We need civil discourse when it comes to politics. We just need civil discourse in real life because that's how we grow as
Hmm.
human beings and individuals and as a society. But here we are in 2024. Of course, it's the most important election of our lifetime. We've never heard that before in our entire life. I'm sorry, I make myself laugh sometimes. I can't even help it. You're laughing at me. Thank you for laughing at my jokes. But dude,
I mean, you're right. It is the most important.
it's always, I mean, since I've been voting, well, I mean, I've been voting since 1998, but as
Hmm.
for president, I wasn't able to vote until 2000 because of the way the election years worked out or
Hmm.
whatever. And since the year 2000, it's been the most important election of our lifetime. It literally has. They
It
won't
really
stop with
is.
it.
It's because it's so important. It's become a meme. It
Dude, it's
really has.
a meme, a video, a joke like we're doing right
Hmm.
now, because it is a joke. It's literally a joke at this point. Like, wow, 2024 has showed me a lot of things. And
Hmm.
one of the things is that civil discourse has become a thing of the past, which is extremely dangerous in our
Hmm.
society. You know, it's become a thing where, like, if one person disagrees with the other person, they can no longer, be in the same room. They can no longer be friends. They can't even, even handle each other on social media. And it's
Hmm.
become quite sad because I come from a time where, I'm a Gen Xer, and you're a millennial. I'm sorry I had to throw you under the bus with that
Sadly,
stuff or whatever.
sadly.
But I'm
Can
sorry.
I claim?
It's the way
Can
you're.
I claim Gen X? I
I
was
mean, you
born in
can claim
'89.
Gen X if you want, but I mean, you didn't come out of your daddy's nutsack in time for Gen X, unfortunately. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But since you're hanging with the big dogs like me, the Gen Xers, you can claim it. I'll let you claim it because you are not one of them. You are more like us than, most would say. But like there was a time where, you know, we could have disagreements
Hmm.
and still be friends. As a matter of fact, there you want to know what's funny, dude? Me and my buddies after school in high school, my buddy's mom worked long days or whatever. She was a single mom. She wasn't home a lot.
Yeah.
So after school, me and my buddies would go to his house and we beat the shit out of each other. We put on some boxing gloves and we would just fight, dude. Seriously, we would fight and we would
I,
literally beat the hell out of each other. And sometimes it would get serious because obviously, if you're getting hit, you're going to get mad, and that
mm-hmm.
happened a lot, and sometimes it would get out of control and whatever. But you want to know what's funny? We would all go have beers that weekend and be like, yo, man, that was a good fight, man. You got the best of me, or I got the best of you, or whatever it was, or whatever. We'd laugh about it, we'd hug it out. And that was that.
Hmm.
Seriously, that really happened in real life, you guys. This stuff happened in the 90s, I'm telling you, and in the 80s, and probably in the 70s and before that.
Hmm. That
But
that's a funny story on that. It's like my best friend. Like we've been friends. We're both 35 now. He just turned 35 on September 7th. Easy's birthday as well.
oh,
So
nice.
God rest his soul. So but and surprisingly his name is Zach as well. So I have a best friend named Zach. So but we when we first became friends, we were 15 and we were hanging out with our buddies, just walking the streets of Lawrenceburg, heading to the bowling alley to go play some arcade games because we're nerds. And he said something about, I think he said something stupid. It was more stupid than it was an insult about my dad. I think he called my dad a dildo, and and I got pissed or so, and I socked him in the face, and then he yoked me up by the shirt, slammed me up against the wall of the behind the bowling alley, and we had our little scuffle. And we didn't talk to each other that day. We weren't really friends. We were just hanging out with the friends that we were around. And probably like the next day, we hung out for the first time, and then we've been friends ever since. Like we're like brothers now. So 20 years later, we're still like brothers.
And that's a form of civil discourse. Sometimes you
Yeah.
just need to do the thing and hash it out. But we're at a time right now where the internet protects everybody, right? And
Hmm.
it's made people way too comfortable with popping off at the mouth with no
Hmm.
repercussions. And then you can just turn around and block that individual,
Yeah.
and it's somewhat over, at that point. That's really, really, really sad, in my
Hmm.
opinion, you know, because not only has it taken away the real life aspect of hashing out your problems,
Hmm.
it's also a way to just get like clicks and likes and get, make enemies, or, make enemies out of people you don't even know, because this person has this following and this person has this following, but you can't follow that person now because this person's beefing with that person. And like, a lot of the times you have the same ideas.
Hmm.
Like 90% of the time you have the same ideas. So it's become a thing where like civil discourse has become a problem rather than a solution, but like there's nothing better than sitting down at a table
Hmm.
with your peers. Like, here, let's go there. I'm sorry, squirrel, ADHD moment, squirrel, you know. But no, think of
Raccoon.
this, right? Think about the founding fathers of this country. Think
Hmm.
about the very beginning of how America started. Do you think all these gentlemen in a room were agreeing that it was a great idea to overthrow the king and take over the land? Do you
Of
think
course
that
not.
was like a civil conversation?
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure I would say 99%, 99.9%, because you can't ever be 100%
Hmm.
positive about anything. Do you think there wasn't any ever, civil discourse during that? Because
Hmm.
I'm almost positive there was. Because most
But
people were like, no, 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 no. You don't need to go against the king. You don't need to do this. Maybe we could go this route or go that route. But then, they sat down at a table, probably in a restaurant, bar, saloon, church, whatever it
hmm.
was, and they hashed it out. They were probably like, well, this isn't a good idea to do it this way. Maybe we should do it this way,
Hmm.
and vice versa, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden they have come up with this plan together through
Yeah.
civil discourse. We're going to go overthrow the government. We're going to go overthrow the king. I'm not
Mm.
condoning overthrowing the government, by the way. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Wait, wait.
Anyways, but no, this is how it was done. I'm telling you guys right now, because nobody agrees on everything 100% of the time. Even if you're a Republican, even if you're a Democrat, definitely if you're if you're a libertarian, they can't even get 100 people to agree in one room, let alone tens of thousands of people throughout the United States. Anybody who's been
Hmm.
to a libertarian state convention or a national convention will know.
Hmm.
you know but like, it happened through civil discourse, and the fact that we've gotten away from that is not only sad, but it's scary.
No, it took them multiple times to finally realize, well, maybe it's time to just declare our independence and just take the treasonous act and consolidate our assets and go hide or join the fight or whatever. I mean, what have you? I mean, some of them didn't fight. They ran and hid. Most of them did fight. Most of them were still in the government. I mean, most of them were in the government, of course, the Continental Congress, but it took them several different petitions. The last one being the olive branch petitions, before they realized Britain's not listening to us. The Crown's not listening to us. Parliament doesn't give a fuck about us. So I think it's time to say we divorce from this and just tell them, hey, we no longer want to be a part of your union. We want to go off and try to do our own thing. I mean, no taxation with representation, right? So we're tired of that shit. So it took a time. I mean, they gradually had to get to that point, and there were disagreements, and a lot of them realized, even when the Declaration of Independence was about to be signed, there were you're telling me there weren't guys there that were having second thoughts, like your life was on the line, your family's life was on the line, your property was on the line. I mean, you were a traitor. Like all of these men that signed this document on July 4th, between July 4th and August 2nd, 1776, were all traitors. And they were documented as traitors by signing that paper that a copy of it got sent to the crown. So, yeah, a lot of it was fear.
Treason is the reason for the season. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
exactly.
But like the fact of the matter is that we need to get back to this. We need to stop being scared of arguments. We need
Hmm.
to stop being scared of, you know, being banned or shadow banned. We need to stop being scared of each other
Hmm.
and say, hey, we know that these people are not good for us. We know these people's interests do not have our best interest at heart. So why in the fuck are we fighting over people who don't care about us in the first place? They don't care. The government
Hmm.
doesn't give a fuck about you. The government doesn't give a fuck about your family. The government doesn't
Hmm.
give a fuck about your children. You're all pawns in their game. We are all pawns in the game. They use us against us. And it's
Hmm.
working flawlessly at this point. The dystopians are winning, and it's not even close. Like the
Hmm.
dystopians, had a plan to pit us against each other, and it is literally working flawlessly. They are
Hmm.
they're winning the war, and most people are like, well, Donald Trump's going to save this country. Kamala Harris is going to save this country. Hey, Chase Oliver is going to save this country. Jill Stein's going to save this country. No, they're not.
That's where that's where I say all of you are wrong because Bernie Sanders is going to save this country. He's going to give us seven houses and $2,000 a month.
But
Wouldn't
he's
you?
not going to give up any of his houses or any of his money.
Nope. And that's the beautiful thing. Burn it all, 2024.
But that's the thing. Like, people are
Yeah.
literally riding the coattails on people who don't even know their
Hmm.
name. They don't know your
Hmm.
name. They don't know where you live. They don't know where your
Hmm.
kids go to school. They don't know anything about
Hmm.
you. You're a statistic. They literally
Hmm.
want you dumb enough to keep working on the farm, paying your taxes,
Hmm.
keep voting. That's what they want.
Yeah. I think Spooner discusses this, especially in No Treason. I
Yes.
mean, it's all about the secret ballot, right? They don't know you. They're not obligated to you. They don't know your name. You're individually unknown because you vote via secret ballot on any form of election. And these people that are supposed to represent you, they don't really they don't know you. So why do they care? Why should they care to even represent you? No, they're going to do what they can do to muscle up their power, their influence, so that when they get out of office, or in today's day and age, they can just stay in office and do this, but they can have enough power and influence from their public position to go back into the private sector and use that as an ability to enrich themselves. They use government to enrich themselves because they don't care. They don't give a shit about you. You aren't known. You are a number. You are literally a number on a ballot box when it's counted after election day.
Fucking cattle.
Yeah.
Move. Seriously.
Yeah.
We are cattle. I don't want to just say
Hmm.
you. We are cattle.
Hmm.
We are all cattle in their game, and they want you to keep playing it.
Hmm.
And it's absolutely vile. And I'm glad you brought up Spooner and No Treason,
Hmm.
because I believe No Treason was published in 1867.
Yep. 2 years after the war.
And so you have a gentleman, which, by the way, let's talk about Spooner for a minute. Lysander
Hmm.
Spooner hated the government and the postal service so much because the postal service was so bad that he opened up his own postal service,
Hmm.
which brought a much better product, got you your mail when you were supposed to have it, and such like that. Anything that, business with mail, it worked
Hmm.
much better than the government postal service. And the
Hmm.
government was like, oh, no, 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 no. You're not going to outwit us. You're not going to outdo us. You're going to shut this shit down.
Hmm.
And
They
so they
sued
shut
him.
it down. They
Yeah.
sued them. They shut them down. They
Yep.
won. They took them to court.
But
But
what one good thing that came out of that was because he went into direct competition was after they shut the American Letter and Mail Company down, the U.S. Post Office, which is what it was called back then, predecessor to the United States Postal Service, they actually started lowering their prices to a more livable standard. Like a stamp was astronomical for those times prior to Spooner starting up shop. After they shut him down, the government realized, oh, maybe we should come down on prices for our services, and stamps were lower, and then it also opened up for competition, like the Pony Express in 1860, that and you wouldn't have companies in the private sector like FedEx or UPS that would come down the road in the future. Obviously, the government contracts with them, but that's probably a more beautiful thing because it makes our postal service more efficient if they're partnering with these larger private companies that are more efficient. So
let me just
Spooner
draw back
actually,
my bow and arrow real quick and let it
yeah.
go.
Hmm.
Because what you just commented was
Hmm.
that competition lowers prices.
Oh yeah.
That's exactly what you said just now. To,
Hmm.
to, to bring it all in one little like sentence, competition lowers prices.
Hmm.
But when it also comes to Spooner, he pretty much said, hey, how is the Constitution a contract between American people when, and I've talked about this in past shows. It's been a long time since I've talked Spooner, and I get excited about it. I'm a huge Spooner guy, huge. I have his flag, down here. I didn't sign shit.
Hmm.
I wish I would have had this behind me instead of this one, even though this flag's awesome.
Hey, no, that flag's cooler.
But
Wu-Tang is
like,
forever.
Lysander Spooner was like, yo, how is the United States Constitution, by the way, in 1867? This was forever
Hmm.
ago. And just, over 100 years after the Declaration and all that stuff,
Hmm.
he's saying, hey, how is this a legal contract between government and people when not only did none of us sign shit, but the
Hmm.
people who wrote it are dead. The people who
Yeah.
wrote the Constitution are dead. Nobody signed this contract. So how is this a contract that we're obligated to? And pretty much, to give you a summary of No Treason, I didn't sign shit.
Hmm.
I didn't consent to shit.
Hmm.
That's what it says, pretty much.
Hmm.
You don't own me. That's what No Treason says. I would highly recommend somebody reading, all of you read No Treason, The Constitution of No Authority by Lysander Spooner. Honestly, read that.
Hmm.
because it's literally one of the greatest books ever written, and you can read it in an afternoon. It's a short book. Seriously,
Hmm.
it's hard to get past it's hard to get past the constitutional speak in that because it's so
Hmm.
old. But like you can muscle through that and get through it in an afternoon. I'll tell you guys something
Yeah.
crazy. It was the most base day I've ever had in my entire life, honestly. I read No Treason by Spooner and Anatomy of the State by Murray Rothbard in a day. That was the most base day
Hmm.
I've ever had in my entire life. I read those two books in one day, and I was like,
To be fair, Anatomy of the State you can get done in like 15 minutes.
I was on a lot of drugs because I was just coming off surgery, so I had nothing to do but read books. But I
Yeah.
was on all kinds of painkillers and shit. So I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
read. It was funny. It took me all day to read those two books. You probably could read them, in much shorter time, but when
You can.
you're pumped full of oh my god, I don't even know what they gave me. The extra strong one. I was
Hmm.
on that. Not Vicodin. I don't even remember anymore. I try to block it out. It gives me
Yeah.
yes.
Oxycodone, probably.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly what it
Yeah.
was. That was oxycodone. Thank you for reminding me. But that time gives
Yeah,
me
you were.
PTSD. I try
I'm
to.
surprised you could. Yeah, I'm surprised you were coherent on
I mean,
that.
I was reading like this one eye because I was wasted, dude. Like they after surgery, they give you really good drugs. Period.
Oh, of course.
They give you really good drugs. I had major surgery. I was stapled. I was literally stapled
Hmm.
from my belly button to my dick, like straight up, dude. Like they had to cut me open. I was on some good drugs.
Yeah.
But we need to be reading more books like this. We need to, get an
Hmm.
understanding of what American politics really is. We need to get an understanding of what the state is and what the state isn't, which is exactly what Anatomy of the State brings you.
Hmm.
That's exactly what that book brings you. And you guys, you want to know what's funny about Anatomy of the State? My niece just had her first birthday party a few weeks ago. I got her that book. Straight up, dude. I bought that book as part of the present. Everybody's like, "What the hell is this?" I'm like, "Just read it to her. It's fine."
Really. Put a little inkling in her brain right now.
Yeah,
Sure.
make your kids base as possible as soon as possible. You know, but like there was civil discourse back then,
Hmm.
and there was civil discourse throughout. Even there was civil discourse throughout society for hundreds of
Hmm.
years, and now all of a sudden it's become a thing of the past because it's either offensive or it's against the grain or it just doesn't make people happy. But
Yeah.
like government isn't a happy place. Like this, there's nothing happy about this.
Hmm.
You need to wake people up. People need to be woken up to what's happening. We're not talking about woke shit. The woke shit is trash.
Hmm.
But we need to wake people up in droves instead of by the hundreds. And that's where I'm kind of at a loss. I've been trying hard for, quite a few years now to like wake people up, but like you're only waking people up by the hundreds. We're not waking up, people up by the millions. We
Hmm.
need to wake them up by the millions. You know,
Yeah.
what do you think we should do to wake people up, in mass droves rather than little by little? Because we're running out of time. We really are.
I mean, that's a hard question because we're all creatures of habit, right? So we're all stuck in our ways. So it's very difficult to try to wake somebody up in the figure of speech that you say. Like, not everybody's going to conform to your ideas because we're all individuals. But how do we wake people up is we show them a better alternative towards where we're at now. Like, say the government or the Federal Reserve, of course, owns the money supply. They have the monopoly of money, devaluing the dollar, and its purchasing power every day as the government continues to spend and print and create new money out of nothing. And one way to help wake people up, and I think people are starting to wake up to this because they see it every day just in the grocery store, that your dollar ain't shit. Um, and that co that coincides with Oliver Anthony's song as well. That kind of wakes people up to a
Amen.
little sliver as well. And in order to wake somebody up, before I lose my train of thought because I'm about ready to go raccoon, um, actually more like cat because I got Duke underneath my feet. But what was I saying? No, but
The dollar ain't
yeah,
shit.
yeah, but you get them to notice that inkling, and then you show them that there's other alternatives to kind of put yourself into a better position to hedge that dollar. So get yourself into blockchain, start utilizing gold, silver, start even utilizing, I don't know, go buy yourself some magic cards and start trading magic cards. That's valuable in the dollar market. But I mean, find something that you can use that is value to you, that can be valued to somebody else in some sort of transactional stage. So, and that's just on the money topic because obviously the dollar is going to crash. It's inevitable. It's fiat. There's nothing backing it. They keep on printing more of it. There's too many endless wars that we're sending money to different countries and different contracts to perpetuate these wars and just keep on keeping them going. We're on a downward trend. So the empire's falling. So just growing that, educating people just on that level, and then coming down to their level and saying, see, this is what's going on in the grand scheme of things. And this is the reason why you're noticing the price influx in the grocery store or at the gas pump because your dollar ain't shit. And then you go from there.
Yeah, I know it's funny you bring up Oliver Anthony, and I actually did a show with Noel right after
Hmm.
that song came out. And I'll be quite honest with you guys, and anybody who listened to that show back then has heard it before. But like that song brought me to tears.
I was gonna say, yeah.
It brought me to tears because like that's what I've been screaming for the past 4 years. And that
Hmm.
person, Oliver put it into a form of art,
Hmm.
in a song. Oh, look at the goosebumps on my hair are standing up on my arms right now. Like seriously, dude. But like the dude put real life situations into a form of art, aka music, which is music is life to me. Like
Hmm.
it's not politics. Anybody who knows me personally knows that music is life. Music is my
Hmm.
first love. I love music before I love my wife. I love music before I love my dogs or anything like that. Like music is my
Hmm.
first love.
Better keep that silent with Mrs. Buds.
She knows. She knows. But I mean,
She,
for crying out loud, my most recent, puppy, he's not a puppy anymore. He's a year old. He's 100 pounds. Holy shit. But like
that's
David
a big
Bowie, I
puppy.
named him David Bowie, dude. Like music is music to me. As a matter of fact, I always have records behind me. Like you
Hmm.
look at my Outcast records, you look at my Cypress Hill records. I got a whole stack of records over. Music is everything to me.
Hmm.
That's how I escape reality and just enjoy myself. That's how I just like and live in some nostalgia sometimes, like I recently saw Tesla and Cheap Trick. Nostalgic as fuck, dude. It was so great. And actually, Cheap Trick stole the show. Cheap Trick,
Did he? I
those
could see
guys are
that.
older than my father and still sound amazing. Honestly, Cheap Trick sounds amazing. They kick ass live. Tesla was great still. Don't get me wrong. They didn't sound as great as Cheap Trick, but I'll tell you what, like my wife even called me out. She was like, because there's a couple songs by Tesla that just own my heart. They really do. And they happen to be power ballads, quote unquote. And she's like, "You crying right now?" And I'm like, "No." You know what I mean? But like, I remember seeing those songs in 1989 live.
Hmm.
Like I saw Tesla open up for Poison in
Hmm.
1989 live and playing those songs. And like those songs are near and dear to my heart for that long. And then all of a sudden
Yeah.
playing them again. And like nostalgia is powerful, man. Nostalgia is
Hmm.
so powerful, really. It can be. And like I didn't really let it all out, but she could see me welling up a little bit. She's like, "You crying?" I'm like, "No, what are you talking about? I ain't crying. What the fuck you talking about, dude? You go grab me a beer, woman." You know what I mean? Like,
I
Well,
mean, music is life. Music
like,
is life.
yes.
One of my best memories is just like sneaking out and basically literally just dropping and just leaving, cutting out of work early just to go with two of my buddies to a small little club. This is back in like oh 08, oh 09, something like that. And I actually I never even told anybody I was leaving. I don't even know how didn't lose my job. But I literally cut out work, met my buddies, went to a Melt Banana because they're kind of like they're a Japanese band. Like I don't know how to explain it, but um good stuff back then. But we went to this little club in Covington, Kentucky, and went to the for Melt Banana, and it was so much fun with the mosh pit. I'm like, and there was this the memory sticks to me because there was this big old fat nerd kid, and he was getting into it too, but like he was getting his ass kicked in the mosh pit, and I just remember like he went down because he was just a big boy. He went down, and we were just in the frenzy of it to the yeah, just psyched up to the music that like I looked down and I see him on the ground. I just booted him right in the head. I'm like, the hell with it. This is fun. I feel so bad now. I'm like, I kicked that guy in the face. But it's great. I
Dude, if
mean,
you're in a mosh pit and you don't get kicked in the face, you're doing it wrong,
yeah,
honestly. Or crowd
exactly.
surfing or anything. Like, I've been in some insane pits. Like, let me tell you about the
Hmm.
craziest pit I was ever involved in my entire life. Outside of Slipknot in 2001 at Ozfest at Pine Knob
Ooh.
in Clarkston, Michigan. That was the most violent pit I've ever been a part of because it's on
Hmm.
a hill. Okay. Pine Knob's on a hill. So, like, if you
Oh,
get hit the wrong way or the right way or whatever you want to call it, you're going rumbling, stumbling, tumbling down the hill no matter what, dude. And I went down that hill so many times, dude, and I kept getting back up. I'm like, roar, you know what I mean? Dude, pits are pits. And you know what? If you get involved in the pit, you got what you were,
hmm.
you got what you had coming to you. Period. You have no reason to complain. If you got involved in that, so
Hmm.
be it, you know.
Yep.
But
I found it quite funny when me and my buddy went to a 311 and Modest Yahoo concert, and and
kind of
there was
gay
these
shit is
kids.
that, dude?
Yeah. Uh,
I'm
pretty
just
good.
kidding.
No,
Gays are great. What are you talking about?
so gays are awesome. So but we're sitting there like we're 311's opening for Modest Yahoo. We're still in the set for 311, and I see these like I don't even know how you moshed at 311, but these kids like they were definitely kids. They were probably like 14, 15, 16 years old. There's like six of them just moshing it up right in front of us. 311. I'm like, okay, have fun, boys.
Right?
It was great. So,
People are funny at concerts or whatever. You know, a lot of these, some
hmm.
people just get too wasted and they don't know how to act. You know,
Hmm.
I've seen mosh pits at like country shows. I'm like, what the fuck are you guys doing?
How do
You know
you
what I
do
mean? Like,
that?
why are you, why? You know, you're supposed to be yeehaw, throwing your hands up, you know, maybe playing a little grab ass with the girls or whatever. You're not
Hmm.
supposed to be moshing at a country show. You know what I mean? Country shows are for drinking and, you know, maybe finding somebody to go home with. That's what a country show is
Pretty
all,
much, pretty
you
much.
know.
So,
But, you know,
or
before
not even to go home with, just in the go to the bathroom with, lock the
something like
door.
that, you know, that does happen too, you know, let's be honest here. But before we get too off task, you know, you brought up government spending, which is actually something I wanted to bring up, you know, on the original show I had planned for us. You know, there was a you know, a term of events that kind of changed my mind on the way the show should go today.
Hmm.
But you know,
Sadly.
such is life, you know, whatever, you know,
Hmm.
people are people. Politics is a nasty game. It's actually
Hmm.
politics, dude. We're all getting tricked into it, and it brings out the worst in us. Politics brings
Hmm.
out the worst in all of us. Myself, you, our friends, our
Hmm.
family. Like, let's be real honest here. Like, politics brings out the worst in all
And
of
the yeah, and to bring up the civil discourse thing, and this is basically how the kind of how the party it, first they had their first split in 1971 when the party was founded by Murray Rothbard, David Nolan, and David Nolan and Samuel Conkin actually was part of the founding. Murray
no shit.
Rothbard. yeah,
I didn't
Murray
know Conkin
Rothbard.
was in there.
Yeah.
That's the first I've heard of
But
this.
hmm but Rothbard and Konkin had a falling out because Konkin's vision is the libertarian idea should be a spread of messaging for liberty, right? And finding different measures such as counter economics and such, in order to kind of infiltrate into the masses in order to bring down the state, right? And Murray Rothbard, for the most part, he's more, let's use it for what it is, right? I mean, we've all read Anatomy of the State, right? And I mean, man, economy and a state. Um, so we have to we can't really embrace politics for the most part, but we have to use it against we have to play the state at its own game, right? So they kind of had that's basically where the falling out between them were between Konkin and Rothbard were. But the funny thing is they were still good friends outside of politics. I mean, it didn't let them like splinter away. They just had two different various perspectives. And so I mean Conklin didn't get deep into the party. And so he went his own way and spreading that message of agorism and setting up the new idea of liberty. I mean the libertarian I'm gonna butcher the title of it. Think it's called the Libertarian Manifesto.
Yes.
But anyways, yes.
Our second,
Um,
our second look at the
yeah,
Libertarian Manifesto or something like that.
yeah, something, yeah,
Conkin
something.
wrote a great book, period.
Oh, he brought a great
Let's
book.
just say,
He wrote Igorist theory. He's written a number of articles. He's had numerous debates. I mean, and he pretty much he calls uh agorism is the tool utilized in what is known as what he labeled as left libertarianism. Now we're not talking like the left is the left now. We're talking like the left of say ANCAP, right? So we're away from the state for the most part, the political tool of the state, because historically the right has always been authoritarian. I mean, look at what the Nazis are considered. They're considered right wing. The left has been historically anti-tyranny, anarchist for the most part, but also socialism and anarchy actually, they're brothers. They're like this together when they've kind of splintered.
oh,
Yeah, yeah. I
I would
mean,
like to hear
Benjamin.
more about this because that's the first time
Yeah.
I've ever heard somebody say that. So please
Well,
go for it. Please go for it.
so socialism in its major concept is not what Marx embraces, which is an economic and political established idea. Socialism in its early onslaught is more about the engineering of breaking society away from the conformities of what is considered normal, pretty much. So from government. So effectively, like Benjamin Tucker expressed a more socialistic point of view. Even Lysander Spooner professed a more socialistic point of view. That doesn't necessarily mean that they weren't against markets. Of course, they were for markets because markets are natural. So, I mean, Charles Fourier was an 18th century social utopian. Most people would consider them a socialist or even a communist because he professed the idea of building a collectivist social utopian structure of society away from the auspices of the state or of the crown. He was French, so of the superpower of the absolute monarchy. Um, but he didn't he didn't go against private property. And unlike Marx, it wasn't personal, it was actual legitimate private property. He understood you need to have some form of private property because people settle, people homestead, people have to have their place, right? And to build out of that place, that home, and turn it into something um in order to produce. And then on top, yeah, so that builds upon markets. The only difference is it's more of a collectivist style. So the individual is still very well active within the collectivist setting. I mean, but then you get kind of slobbered up with Karl Marx coming into his and Friedrich Engels coming into their way in Germany in about the 1830s, 1840s, published the Communist Manifesto in 1848, and that kind of consolidates this socialist concept and this communist or collectivist utopia more into I hate to say a mathematical standpoint, but basically a mathematical standpoint, trying to make it a science rather than nature. I mean, because we're humans are social creatures, so we're gonna be social in a collective. We're gonna have to work and build relationships and work with each other. That's how markets work. Yes, association, voluntary association. So that's Marxist thought is kind of where socialism kind of breaks away from that idea of realism, of naturalism, effectively. I mean, and becomes this science-backed political economic fallacy of statist dystopia with a goal in mind that we're going to rebel against the state to reform another state with the workers, a worker collective, and then eventually we'll wither that state down to statelessness and have this kumbaya collective utopia, which does not happen because utopia cannot exist.
You are correct on that. But like
Yeah,
the difference between socialism and communism is, socialism still believes in some form of private property.
yeah,
Not much, but they do believe in
yeah.
some form of it, where
Mm-hmm.
communism is a complete abolition of private property.
Mm-hmm.
There's no private property in communism. Like, I can come sleep in your bed and you can't do anything about it. You know what I mean? Like, that's what communism is. That's, hey, how you doing, buddy? We're gonna snuggle tonight. You know what I mean? I'm really not trying to snuggle you.
I
Nobody's
mean,
gay here. You know what I mean? Like,
Lincoln would have liked that with his buddy Speed, Joshua Speed. So,
well, I mean, Lincoln was also a faggot, but what? Oh, whoopsies! I said that out
but
loud.
well, I
But
mean, in a real sense, maybe, maybe
I
with
mean,
Joshua Speed, they had some eloquent letters that, in today's standards, you would read them and say, "These guys were fucking faggots."
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I know you're not supposed to say that word. Don't do that. No, we're bringing it back, dude. We're bringing it
Hmm.
back because we're not going to tiptoe around this shit anymore. There's
Hmm.
no more tiptoeing. There's absolutely no negotiating anymore. No negotiations when it
Hmm.
comes to evil and pushing an agenda on anybody. And by the way, you can be a faggot without being gay. Just saying. Just saying. I grew up in a time where, like, we were in locker rooms and stuff, and we called each other
I
that.
mean,
And it
in the
didn't
UK,
like
in
that.
the UK, they eat faggots.
Dude, no, a fag is a cigarette.
A fa
A
I would
fag
show it
is a
on screen.
cigarette.
I would show it on the screen right now, but I don't want you to get blocked from YouTube.
Oh, I'm probably going to get kicked off there eventually, anyways. You know what I mean? But no, like, even System of a Down had a song, all the maggots smoking fag.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
They're smoking fags. That means they were smoking cigarettes. That's an English term or whatever.
Hmm.
You know, but you kind of brought up spending, and that's somewhere where that we really, really, really need to go, especially coming up with the election in less than 2 months at this point. Um,
Hmm.
it's really hilarious to watch Democrats bash Republicans about spending and vice versa. It really is, because what's
I
just
think.
happened recently
Hmm.
is that let's start here. The Republicans have always been against the war in Ukraine. Most of them, anyways, minus, like, Kevin McCarthy, always the Speaker of the House, right? It's always the
Well,
Speaker
Lindsey
of the House.
Graham. Lindsey Graham loves
Lindsey
Ukraine,
Graham, oh my God, the
but
war pig. I
but
should have
he's a
wore my Lindsey
faggot. So,
Graham shirt for this. Actually,
oh, I should. I
I
should
should have.
have too.
We should have planned this out. We should have been
We
twins,
should have.
but we're not. So here we are. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and then the Democrats are against the war in Israel. So many would think. So many would think.
Yeah. Yep.
Let's just put this out there right now. Nobody has received more APAC money since 1990 than Joe Biden. No one, knock
Mm-hmm.
yourselves out, look it up. Go ahead, look it up anywhere you can find it. Nobody has
Open
received
secrets.
more APAC money than Joe Biden.
Mm-hmm.
This is why
Yeah.
we keep sending them more money on top of the money we already send them and more weapons on top of the weapons we already send them. This is why
Mm-hmm.
that's happening. But I digress. Anyways, the House just passed $8 billion to Ukraine,
Yep.
and they just also passed $8 billion to Israel, right?
Wasn't that voting bill supposed to be in this bill and it ended up not being in this bill because it's all theater?
It is all theater. It is
Yeah.
all theater. This is a goddamn charade at this point.
Yeah.
Everything in politics is a charade. And we're just here looking at it going, and some of us know, like, oh my God, like, are you kidding me right now? People are really falling for this. And then most, some of, the Republicans are like, oh my God, they're sending $8 billion to fucking Ukraine. And the other side's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh my God, we're sending $8 billion to Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Americans are living in an insane inflated time right now. Everything is expensive. You feel it, like you said earlier. You're feeling it at the
Mm-hmm.
grocery store. You're feeling it at the gas pump. You're feeling it in your gas bill. You're feeling it in all your bills. You're feeling it in interest rates. You're feeling it in, all of us. Anybody who is not rich, a working class American or a poor person, is feeling it.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, we're going to send another $16 billion between the two countries so they can kill more people. That's fine. But in the meantime, Americans are probably going to starve to death because,
Mm-hmm.
okay, let's break it down like this. There's people who are middle class, upper middle class, who can kind of figure their way through life and get their groceries and pay their bills and live check to
Mm-hmm.
check. Okay. But what about these people who are not middle class? They're actually poor, are living in poverty, that can't live paycheck to paycheck, and they got to figure out if they're going to pay their bills or eat. What about them? But instead, we're going to send more money overseas. Like, this is a slap in the face to every
Mm-hmm.
fucking American in the United States right now. And they keep doing it, and they keep doing it, and they just, they'll keep spending more money. Oh, and
Mm-hmm.
on top of it, we just had more natural disasters here in the United States. A bunch of America in the
Mm-hmm.
eastern coast and southern part of America are literally underwater. They're going to have to
Mm-hmm.
print millions of dollars for that. And they,
Mm-hmm.
not that we want them to do that, but you have to help people. Like, we have to get out
You
of
have
this.
to.
You can't just
I
fucking
mean,
let
you got
people live like this.
yeah,
Okay.
it's not even just Georgia and Florida. I mean, literally this hurricane came up still as a tropical storm. It's
Tennessee, the
unreal.
Carolinas. I mean, we're
Tennessee,
talking
Carolina.
Florida,
There's a there
Louisiana,
was a
Mississippi. They're
yeah.
underwater.
There was a dam that literally broke in Cobb County, Tennessee, and they had to evacuate the town of Newport, Tennessee, and the whole county because they're going to be under like it's going to fail. If it hasn't already, it's going to break completely. I mean, the Pigeon River and I forget the other river, they're so high right now. They should be cresting if not today, tomorrow. I mean, at like 23, 24 feet.
Like, major
Yeah.
bridges that connect states and cities and
Mm-hmm.
towns have been destroyed. Nobody can get across.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to affect commerce and trade. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They're going to have to print more money to fix this shit.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens when they print money? It devalues the dollar even more. We are about to see not only inflation. Oh, and by the way, they just dropped the interest rates.
We're about to jump
We're
into
about to get
hyperinflation now.
fucking bent over. They're
Yeah.
not even going to spit on it first.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of saving the printing of money, I don't want them to print money ever. I really don't.
Mm-hmm.
It's a horrible idea, and this is why we're here in the first place. But
Yeah.
instead of printing money to fix the problems here that we're dealing with now, we're going to send more money overseas.
Mm-hmm.
in foreign policy to kill more people that doesn't affect our borders, our rights, our liberty. None of it does.
Hmm.
None of it, none of anything that has to do in Israel has to do with us. None of the Ukraine Russia bullshit has to do with us. Nothing.
Well,
But
it
we're going
does
to
have.
pay for it. You, me, everybody listening to the show, every
Hmm.
American outside of people that are, I'm not like a partisan guy. I'm looking out for everybody, dude. Like, do
Hmm.
I feel some type of way about government? Yes. But do I want Americans to thrive and do well? Of course I do. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat or a libertarian, independent, whatever you are. I don't care. I want Americans to thrive. But how the fuck are we going to thrive when they keep printing money and sending it overseas? When we have our own problems here, there's people living under
Hmm.
bridges here.
Yep.
It's impossible. Like these people are impossible. And people are fighting over people that are doing this to us. Americans are willing to go to war with themselves over politicians who don't
I
care.
I think that's the plan, honestly. Like I said earlier when you were on my show, last night of all places, but as this gets recorded, um, it's all by design because right now we're looking at a world disaster that strategically is placed in three different locations that are the breadbasket of the world. You have Ukraine and the conflict there with Russia. You have the buildup in Israel that is most likely going to be a boiled over pot hitting into Iran. And then you have the shit show here in the United States politically that is dividing us that might possibly lead into maybe another civil war or something, some sort of disaster that affects our breadbasket. So we're the three breadbaskets in the world. And it seems like the dystopian acknowledgement is they're trying to fast track the futuristic wars for resources to basically control because it's all about control because
Yeah.
the future wars are going to be over your resources. It's going to be over food. It's going to be over water. I mean, we are relatively expanded and we haven't innovated enough, mostly because the state is a parasite. And we do live in global communism, even if we do have the facade of markets. I mean, the government controls with regulations. So we're literally looking at the future right now in the present, and they're trying their best to, I guess, speed it up because they want to annihilate some portion of population so that it's easier to maintain order amongst the masses for those who are left. I mean, they initiated COVID. Let's not pussyfoot around. COVID was a governmental attack within the pharmaceutical and medical and military industrial field. I mean, they were literally
Gain of function.
testing, yeah, gain of function. They were literally testing viruses to see what they would do if they would be released out onto the public, and it's supposedly leaked. I don't buy it. It- I mean, I don't buy it. And every government, it's not China's fault. It's the United States' fault. It's China's fault. It's Russia's fault. It's the UK's fault. It's every government in the world that are in coordination with one another. I mean, now they're doing it with war because and they're literally I love Mike's analogy when he talks because we literally are living in a world where the four horsemen of the apocalypse are amongst us.
Yes.
And I mean, what are they? You have famine, you have pestilence, you have war, and so we've had pestilence. They fast-track pestilence. They're with this or with this inflation crisis and the supply chain crisis, you're about to have famine if not already in certain parts of the world. You have war, which is just endless. That just hasn't stopped. The next step is death. It's literally a dystopian mechanism to uh, come to just convulse back to the old order where the aristocracy can maintain a easier presence with the masses. And in order to do that, I mean, we have 8 billion people on this planet. That's 8 billion individuals that are not going to just comply and conform, especially in desolate third world shitholes where they have to self-sustain. So, um, you want to get rid of those people. So they're going to try their best to get rid of those people. There is a population control conspiracy. And how do you get rid of them? You use disease, famine, war, which ultimately leads to death and destruction.
It, you literally have Vladimir Putin out there saying right now, we will use nukes if you
Hmm.
guys keep fucking around. He said straight up, we will nuke you. If NATO keeps fucking around, we are going to use
Hmm.
nukes. This isn't a game,
Hmm.
dude. We're the
No.
closest to nuclear war that we have ever been, ever in the history
Hmm.
of the world. Okay. People could talk about the Cold War all they want and blah, blah, blah,
Hmm.
this side or the other. Dude, the war games they're playing right now
Hmm.
are not a game. It's really, really, really not a game. You have a
Hmm.
lunatic like Vladimir Putin. You know, a lot of people will call us Russian sympathizers and shit like that. We know
Hmm.
Putin's a lunatic. We know this. We
He's a
know
tyrant.
Putin's a lunatic. You know what I mean? We know this.
Hmm.
Does he have a legit beef with Ukraine? Of course. I've talked about this many times. He does. But really,
Yeah.
his beef is more with the United States, not with Ukraine. He just wants the United States to leave them the fuck alone and get the hell out of here. He don't want NATO
Hmm.
surrounding his borders. Like
Hmm.
I've said a million times, how would the United States take it if our enemies were moving in closer and closer and closer to our borders? What would they
Hmm.
do? I guarantee you this, it wouldn't be like, yo,
Oh,
that's fine, do what you need
yeah.
to do. No, there would be some resistance. You guys need to wake up to this shit. Foreign policy is vile. War is vile. It's
Hmm.
gross. There's nothing great about it. Just like politics, it's gross. It's
Hmm.
not a winning game.
I will give
You can't
Putin
just look at
one.
it like the
Yeah.
USA is right all the time. The
Yeah.
USA is not right all the time.
Mm-mm.
As a matter of fact, they've been wrong for like the past 40 years. I'm 44 years old, for fuck's sake.
Hmm.
And the United States, the
Yeah.
more I read, it's been wrong
Yeah.
about their foreign policy every single fucking time. And it affects
Hmm.
us. It affects my family. It affects my nieces and nephews. I don't bring kids in this world. It affects
Hmm.
my neighbors. It affects people I love. What the fuck? Stop cheering this shit on. It's not a
Yeah.
fucking game. It's not funny. It's not a joke. We can't just be like, yeah, we're going to get the bad guys. The United States is not the good guy. Enough already, as Scott Horton would say. Enough.
Hmm.
Fuck. It's tiring. It's
Golf clap.
exhausting. It's tiring and exhausting, dude. We can't just sit here and be like,
Hmm.
the United States government is always right in what they do, and their foreign policy is always right. The foreign policy is about building an empire. It has nothing to do with your freedom and liberty. It really
Hmm.
doesn't. That's what war is supposed to be about. War is supposed to be about protecting your borders and protecting
Hmm.
your rights and liberties. And that's it, dude. That is it. That's where the war
Hmm.
starts and that's where it ends. It's not just to go be like, hey, man, these people got some oil we want. Or hey, man, these people got some lithium we want. But we're going to portray it as these people are the bad guys who are against democracy, which, by the way, democracy's gang rape, motherfuckers.
Hmm.
Democracy, there's nothing okay about democracy. How is that? It's mob rule, dude.
Yeah.
If you really
Even
look
the
at it, like who's pro mob rule? Seriously, ask yourselves that. Who is pro mob rule? I guarantee you, most of you be like, no, that's not cool, man.
hmm.
But here we are going, well, as long as the United States is doing it, it's okay. It's not okay, dude. Do you think that, in 2003 when we went to Iraq for weapons of mass destruction that have been they didn't dude Iraq didn't have weapons of mass destruction for over
Mm-mm.
a decade. They knew that, but they needed a selling point to get us over there and get the rah-rah behind the people. But really, in reality, it was all about we've said this 1,000 times on Buds that it was about the Iraqi dinar and how they wanted
Mm-hmm.
to sell
Yep.
the gas in the Iraqi dinar instead of the US dollar. So then the
Mm-hmm.
US had to bring them some democracy. That's
Mm-hmm.
what the US does, dude. They bring
Mm-hmm.
everybody who
They
goes against what they want gets a healthy dose of democracy. Democracy is war. The United
mm-hmm.
States government proves that at every point. When is it enough? When are you people going to wake up and say, no, this is not okay? You know what? Y'all need to stop voting, stop paying taxes, and stop worshiping these motherfuckers in DC.
Mm-hmm.
God damn it, dude. I'm hyped up, dude. I just got hyped up. Sorry about the rant. No, I'm not really sorry about the rant.
Yeah.
Wake up, guys.
Cut the promo.
I know, right? I should be in the
Yeah.
WWE. I should be the next Paul Heyman. You know what I mean?
Hey, I'd watch. Let's email after this. Let's email Triple H and see if we can get you in there as a manager.
So I'll be the next Paul Heyman, dude. Actually, you want to know what, dude? I would love that. I've been a wrestling fan since I was a wee lad, dude. I was at WrestleMania 3. I watched Hogan slam the Giant live. I was 7 years old. I
Jealous.
watched that, that was cool as
Jealous.
fuck.
That had to have been a hell of an experience.
It was cool. I vaguely remember it, dude. I'm in my 40s now, so like being seven
Yeah.
is hard to remember. But I know I was there, and
hmm
I kind of remember a lot of it. But I'll tell you what, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Macho Man Randy Savage actually stole the show. That's
They
probably
did.
one of the best wrestling matches of all
Yep.
time.
Yep.
But like Zack Attack, like what's your take on this foreign policy nonsense and the government spending and the rah-rah that keeps the people divided when we should be
hmm
united against these tyrants?
Destabilization. The whole idea of United States foreign policies to destabilize in order to force the conformity of the central bank always has been. Every time we move into a new area, like take Iraq for example, the issue realistically was Saddam wanted to begin a process of selling his oil in first a little bit in the euro, more like a competitive spirit. So he wanted to do uh compete, have alternatives within euro, the Iraqi dinar, some dollars, et cetera, but mostly backed within the Iraqi dinar. Obviously, that's real news. That's real history. We were lied to. There was no weapons of mass destruction. And when we moved in, one of the first things we did was we reformed the government. Well, first off, we had to go kill or arrest every anybody that was a part of the Iraqi government, including Saddam. And we had to get rid of them. So no resistance. And then we destabilized it because um, we took the much we tribalized it because Iraq is separated between the Sunni, the Shia, and the Kurds to the north, the Kurds for which we gave Saddam the chemical weapons to literally mass slaughter with in the
Slaughtered the Kurds.
80s.
Slaughtered
Yeah. So we kind of let them they've pretty much been on their own since then for the most part. Iraq's not really it's never really been unified. And then you have the Shia and the Sunni historical rivalry because of who who is the true heir to Muhammad. And so that kind of coincides. So we use that against them. And considering Saddam was effectively a Sunni, though the Ba'ath Party was secular and he didn't care who he went and persecuted and killed. For the most part, he concentrated his murder cult in the 80s on the Shia and the Kurds. So we destabilized these peoples. We set up shop with a diversified government of representatives in our image that was of the majority democracy. So the majority of this democracy is going to be Shia, not Sunni. because the Sunnis were the minority. And then the next step that we did was we installed a central bank to funnel money to keep the money laundering scheme of the Federal Reserve all across. That's what the American empire is just a money laundering scheme shot up through the Federal Reserve. That's why Ukraine and the Burisma holdings and the Hunter Biden shenanigans
Let me
is,
interrupt
I
you real
mean,
quick because
yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Hmm.
They do this, and this
Hmm.
this has been the name of the game for decades.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Federal Reserve is already planting fucking banks in Ukraine as we speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's happening. It's
Hmm.
happening. You hit the nail on the head 100%. This has nothing to do with, I don't want to keep repeating myself. It's not about American democracy. It's
Hmm.
not about freedom, liberty. It's not any of that. It is about
Hmm.
planting central banks into these countries to loan them money that they know will never get paid back, but they'll keep them there because if they go bogue on the loan, they'll just bomb the shit out of them again to keep
Hmm.
them subservient because they have something we want. These
Hmm.
countries that we go to war with have something we want.
And I'll interject, there's a reason why Israel was created in 1949, and it goes back to the Balfour Agreement and just after World War One, a secret, it was semi-secret that eventually came out, kind of a hush hush, don't tell until it's time to tell everybody, hey, we're going to use this Palestinian mandate to create a Jewish state. And that was backed and that was backed, funded, and I mean, I've ranted and rambled on this all the time. The Rothschilds have owned England, and that's the British Empire is a Rothschild empire since 1815, and Israel is a Rothschild state. That's what Zionism's a distraction. Israel's a Rothschild state. Israel's there, and that's one reason for the destabilization is to utilize a funneling scheme in order to be able to have these central banks set up. And that's why Israel needs to exist.
Let me bump in real quick.
Really?
Let me
Yeah.
bump in real quick. Let me get my ear out so I can hear you correctly. Um, who's one of the seven names that started the Federal Reserve?
Well, JP Morgan.
No, but who are you just talking about?
Oh, the Rothschilds.
Thank you.
Yeah, they were everybody that was in the Rothschilds themselves were not a part of the meeting at Jekyll Island. It was representatives of the major families, the major companies in the United States and Europe. You had Paul von Warburg who was a Rothschild asset in like I think it was either Austria or Germany, who was a major banking elite there, Rothschild representative. He sent his he had just immigrated not too long, like maybe a decade prior to the United States, and he had his representative meet there, or maybe he actually did it himself. But J.P. Morgan had his representative, John D. Rockefeller, you name it. Like all of these, though, there's a reason why they were able to cement into power. They were all influenced by the Rothschild banking family in the United Kingdom.
That's right. You got that
So,
right. You got that right.
and that goes into more history on why the Republican Party was kind of created and why the power vacuum after the Civil War was was what it was. And the political division ended up siding towards the Republican Party at that point, which set the precedent to now it's the Democrats. I always say that the Democrats became the party of power by 1910 because the Republicans were kind of doing what they're doing now. They were divided. They were divided up and splintering. But I digress. The fact of the matter is Lincoln himself was a true proponent for a national bank system. He was a Hamiltonian, and so one of the first laws that he signed, besides the very fascist Pacific Railroad Act, was the National Banking Act, which consolidated these these investment banks like owned by J.P. Morgan, Rockefeller, etc., to be the central loan officers to the federal government, basically a predecessor of the Federal Reserve before the true monopoly, and that's kind of what set in stone the stepping into the Federal Reserve in 1913. So,
And you just laid that out flawlessly, man, and I thank you for that. But to continue on with the government spending, because like, we all know, that how it brings war and all that
mhm,
stuff. There is something I just learned recently, actually, and you might have heard this before, but this is something new to me, and this is going to be something new to a lot of people. So, the Democrats are so upset about Donald Trump spending $130,000 of his own money to keep
mhm,
Stormy Daniels quiet.
mhm.
$130,000 of his own money, hush
Yeah.
money, to keep the porn chick quiet.
Mhm,
And you guys, I'm telling you right now, knock it off with this shit, dude. Seriously, because Trump wasn't the only one banging chicks. Okay, do you know that
mhm.
Chuck Schumer was one of the big names on Heidi Fleiss's Black Book as big
Yeah.
spenders?
Mhm,
Which Chuck is one of the biggest, loudest proponents of Donald Trump's hush money spending.
mhm.
Now, check this out. Thomas Massey actually brought this up in a congressional hearing. Did you guys know that Congress has spent $17 million of taxpayer money
Mhm,
of to not let me reword this. They've spent $17 million in hush money
mhm.
to protect congressional people from sex crime charges, whether it be sexual assault, sexual harassment, whatever it may be.
Or
$17 million
just, yeah.
of your money, of my money, of all taxpayers' money has been
Mhm.
used as hush money in sex crime stuff against
It,
congressional people.
it was a beautiful speech, by the way. He drilled him. He
He
straight
really
up grilled
did.
him.
He really did.
Yeah.
And this is a fact. This is true.
Hmm.
But Democrats want to be mad at Donald Trump for spending $130,000 of his own money to keep this girl quiet.
Hmm.
Please make it make sense. Please. Please, because it doesn't. It doesn't make sense.
It, there's nothing to there. There's nothing to say about that. It's all Thomas Massey had another brilliant performance on the congressional committee floor with his political theater. I mean, it's all theater. They're doing the same shit as their opponents and turning around and going against their opponents in order to trick you and get you fighting and get you actively just hating one another so that they can keep on taking away all your civil liberties, taking away your property, uh, s- spending so much of your money to subsidize uh,
Bullshit.
institutions like Blackstone or Blackstone, not Blackstone,
BlackRock.
uh, BlackRock to buy out all this land. I mean, so that they can raise property values up so you can't afford your home. Meanwhile, taxes are going up in property tax. So you're literally like the jig is up, and Klaus Schwab he said it brilliantly when he admitted it openly in 2020 at the WEF. You are truly meant to own nothing and you are to be happy. You're to be a good little serf on the Lord's dominion, and the aristocracy owns everything. They want feudalism again. Feudalism was the only time in history that the elites had some form of control.
It's insanity. And
Hmm.
people are clueless about most of this stuff. And this is why
Hmm.
there's people like you and I who are like, hey, this is what it is. We're going to lay it out on the line for you. We're going to be honest and
Hmm.
merciful for you, which, by the way, at some point, people like us are going to get shut down.
Hmm.
They're going to look what they did to Alex Jones, dude.
Hmm.
Seriously. That's horrible for journalism. Look at what they did to oh my God. Why am I having a brain fart right now? Uh The Wikipedia guy, God damn it, why?
Oh, Julian Assange.
Julian
Julian
Assange, thank you
Assange.
so much. Total
Hmm.
brain fart. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
But like,
I
look
mean,
what they did to him.
he lost a decade of his life. 7 of it was locked either in the Ecuador embassy in London or in prison. Since 2019, he's been in prison in the UK.
But look what they did to him. So they let him out, but he
Hmm.
had to plead guilty to the charges against him. That was a horrible, horrible thing for journalism. That was bad. But like, what
Hmm.
would you do in his shoes? Of course, you're going to take the deal, dude. You've been
Yeah.
locked up for a decade. You want to go home to your wife and kids, man. Of
Yep.
course, he's going to
Yep.
take the deal. But for journalism itself, that was terrible.
Oh.
For bringing out war crimes against the United
Hmm.
States. He told the truth about the United States government and got in trouble for it. It's only
Hmm.
a matter of time before they start coming for us. I keep telling my wife all the time, like, at some
Hmm.
point, they're coming. At some
Hmm.
point, it's going to happen.
Well, look what they did to Ross Ulbricht. He's sitting in prison right now. It's been a decade. It's been well over a decade now. And he's been in prison for with a 2 life sentence and I think, yeah, 2 life sentences and 40 years for opening up a marketplace, competing with the political economy.
Yes.
I mean, so yes, there's some bad shit that happens. He used the blockchain, opened up the market, the Silk Road. There was some bad shit. There's always going to be bad shit in a market. There's going to be guns. There's going to be drugs. Sadly, there's going to be sex trafficking, some of which does include kids, but our own government's involved with sex trafficking of children and pedophilia. Look at Jeffrey Epstein and fucking Diddy right now.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. And by the way, where's the 325,000 children that are missing from the southern border?
Probably on Pedo Island and
Thank you for bringing that up because literally there's
I mean,
325,000 children that have become missing from the border
mhm.
coming from the southern border into United States.
Now we know why. There's a reason. There's a rhyme and a reason for everything, and why they cause this chaos. I mean, government problems for government solutions. The solution right now for all of us with this distraction is that they're going to continue to fight with it politically, and then we're not going to have a solution. We're just going to have an unsecured border. We're going to have underfunded border control that really doesn't do their job anyways. They're just a bunch of lazy piss ants. I mean, they could get all the funding in the world. They'd still finger their own assholes and jerk off. That's really all they do down there. I'm sorry. I mean, that's law enforcement in general. They're public tit suckers. Sorry about your luck, back the blue people, but they're public tit suckers. They don't care about you. They care about revenue. Civil asset forfeiture is a real thing. It's highway robbery by a gang, police. I mean, and they send that money to the federal government, to usually the DEA, for when they stop you and find cash, and then that cash gets adjusted, counted up, and split between many different ways between the jurisdictions in that county and the federal government, and you get fucked. You have to fight for that sometimes for years, and you may not even get all your money back, if any of it back, period. So, I mean, but I digress again on the border issue. It's all this. I mean, this is what they're doing. I mean, I mean, they're letting these people in. There's something called gotaways. Gotaways, and then and these gotaways are the ones that are actually the criminals, or the smugglers, the drug runners, the human traffickers, the actual gangsters. They're coming through, and then you have the smoke screen of all the people that are actually coming up here trying to find a better life, and they're the ones that are getting caught because it's all a smoke screen. They catch the ones that are easy. They're all working in coordination with the cartels. Our own government works with the cartels. I mean,
Our own government is the cartel. They're
oh,
the ones with
government
the
is yeah.
cartel. That's the funniest thing is like the United States government is we need to go after these cartels.
Hmm. We
Go
are the
after
cartel.
yourselves. You're literally the biggest cartel in the entire world. Whether it be
Hmm.
drugs, whether it be like trafficking or anything like that.
Hmm.
United States government is or guns or weapon anything. They
Hmm.
are the cartel. They are the ultimate cartel. People need to wake up to this stuff. You
People
know,
need to wake up, and then a recommendation if you're into hip hop, There's a song on Revolutionary Volume 2 by Immortal Technique. It's called Peruvian Cocaine. I believe it's the second, it's either the second or the third track. Or there's an intro, so it's probably the third or the fourth track. But it literally gives it's a segue of separate verses. Each of them with each verse is a different character in the game of how drugs come into the United States and work from the start on the coca plantations in Bolivia, Peru, Colombia, all the way to the upper echelon in the United States, from the cops to the politicians to the court to the banker. Everybody is involved. So it's called Peruvian cocaine. It's immortal technique. I mean, I don't exclusively really agree with a lot of Immortal Technique because he is kind of on the left side of things, but Immortal Technique has always been like when I first got into political rap, Immortal Technique was my shit.
Nice, nice.
Yeah,
When it comes to
so
political rap, I'm a Blooded the Brave guy. That's my homeboy
yeah.
from Indy, dude. Like, I love that guy. He's been on this show and he's been speaking truth for like 20 fucking years, dude. Seriously. I love that guy.
Yeah, I gotta plug out. I gotta plug out Young D the Champ. He's a fellow Detroit rapper, so he's working some things. He has a couple albums that are on Spotify that you can find. And then a there's a group out of Colorado Springs, and I got to plug out Dangerous Thoughts on this one.
Oh,
Uh,
okay. Cassie's boy.
so click tight. So they got their first album that's also on Spotify and YouTube, and they're actually working on their second album that should be out in a couple months. But
Nice.
go check out Click Tight. So CLICTIT, I believe. It's some weird spelling, but you can see, yeah,
Nice,
raw
nice. I
shit
dig
though.
that. I dig that, dude.
Yeah. So,
Now, before we go, I want to throw a couple things out there that are very interesting that could be, that could turn into something quite wild actually in the monetary system very, very soon.
mhm,
From Gold Telegraph. I love the Gold Telegraph. They are like some of
mhm,
my favorite follows. They give out great information, and I'm a precious metals guy. So check this out. The BRICS economic bloc will add around 10 new members during its upcoming summit. The world continues to change in big ways,
mhm.
which pretty much is saying 10 new members is 10 new countries. They already have
Yeah,
Russia, they already have China, they already have India, they already have Brazil, they have Mexico. I can't think of who else they got. There's already
they were.
six, I believe.
Mhm.
Um,
Venezuela, I think at one point was looked like they were going to join, but I think
I don't think they made
all
it,
that,
but
yeah, yeah, I
in
don't
the
think
grand
that's going to
scheme of things,
happen
10 more
anytime soon.
countries about to join BRICS, which is going to be the
Hmm.
rival to the US dollar. The BRICS system is a
Hmm.
digital currency that will, by the way, be backed by gold, which is terrifying
Hmm.
because the US dollar is backed by nothing except the
Hmm.
money printer. Um,
Hmm.
and these people are going to start making their own country or their own currency. And also, like, once they do that, they're going to leave the petrodollar. And once they leave the petrodollar, I'm sorry, you guys, it is over
Hmm.
here. Once they leave
The
the
pet, yeah,
dollar, it is
the
over.
the petrodollar's already dead. Saudi Arabia already left it.
So it's pretty much a wrap. This is why you're
Yeah,
seeing
yeah.
even the dollar becoming less more relevant.
Mm-hmm.
This is literally why the government won't stop printing money
Hmm.
because they know it's over.
Hmm.
They just keep printing money because they know it's over. And SWIFT, who is the global monetary system, is already working on the CBDC. Even it was earlier this year, I believe in the winter time, where they said it's going to be 12 to 24 months for the CBDC.
Hmm.
It's happening, you guys, and there's going to
Well,
be no way to stop it unless you get into precious metals and get yourself
hmm.
a tangible monetary system. I know you're into the blockchain a little bit and into crypto and stuff, but
I was going to say something on that. There's something interesting that I read, and I read it and said it, and Andrew brought it up, and then I read it. Speaking of Gold Telegraph, this came from Cointelegraph.
okay.
I forget exactly what it's called. It's basically a blockchain newsletter. And but there's in Louisiana, this country, Louisiana actually passed a law that you can start. People will be able to start paying off like their taxes and their debts in Bitcoin. if they or any form of crypto if they feel.
You want to know why they did that? Because the Feds got a hold of the blockchain. That's why.
That's yeah. I mean,
That's exactly
Bitcoin
why
was
they did that.
yeah,
This is
yeah.
why I'm so much against crypto now. I used to be a huge Bitcoin guy.
Well,
Um,
I'm against Bitcoin for that reason, and everybody should read Roger Ver's book Hijacking Bitcoin because it goes in detail that Bitcoin was hijacked during the block wars, the scalability wars. There was a fight between how to scale Bitcoin, and it was between the small blockers and the big blockers, and of course the big blockers won because they want to protect their investments. And they want to gain more investments into the asset and fulfill it as a store of value to propel themselves into making profit. So it's Bitcoin was hijacked to become a store value asset or a stock essentially backed in dollars. So whereas and that's the reason for the Bitcoin Cash fork in 2017 and other decentralized projects since then. Like you've had Ethereum has had their own projects. You've had
Ethereum
the
is the one who
or
tagged team with the
Ethereum.
government for the
Yeah.
CBDC, though.
Yeah,
Ethereum, they were
Ethereum
the
is
first one
probably
to join forces
yep.
with the government,
Yep.
and the Federal
Yeah,
Reserve would be like, "Yo,
Yeah, Ethereum is not the see there's really only one chain at the moment that's probably truly private, and that's Monero and the projects that are going down through there. Like sadly, like I'm in also into like the Dragon Chain network. Sadly, it's tied a little too close right now with Ethereum, but I mean there's a workaround. That's what's the benefit of the blockchain is there is a workaround um, even with all this dystopian nonsense of gaining access by government and utilizing regulation to stamp it down, the blockchain with Bitcoin is not private. I mean, it never was really supposed to be truly private. I mean, but it was supposed to be a means to compete and have another alternative for uh, a more decentralized currency option, sort of like a digital cash. And that's what Bitcoin Cash is pretty much. It's a digital cash. It forked in 2017. It's forked a couple other times with in a couple other projects. And it's effectively held. And if you want to back it on the asset, like store of values, it's gone up from now it's like close to like $500, but it's actually on the asset thing, it's kind of held its value. Whereas Bitcoin's flux, yeah, it's up there in value. It's right now it's what it's 64,000. But it's a little bit more volatile. Whereas Bitcoin Cash has held on. But that's not what I look at Bitcoin Cash. I look at these assets as more of an alternative way to use the blockchain for what Satoshi in his original white paper for Bitcoin was supposed to do, and that was to compete with the dollar, compete with other fiat currencies, into finding an alternative that was decentralized with what we have, the internet, utilizing the internet as a tool, um, so people could actually be able to afford things and pay for things off of the dying dollar that has no value. There's no real confidence besides if you love thy government, basically. I mean, and the purchasing power just keeps on dwindling with it as long as they continue to create new money, as Mises says. I mean, Mises preaches this in every one of his works. Inflation is literally the devaluing of a currency through the means of newly created money, flooding into what we already have. Like it's backed by nothing, and it's backed by nothing since 1971. It's literally been backed by nothing. They just print. So that's the whole point of the blockchain technology, and there's projects out there that are trying their damnness to fulfill that private keychain. I also tell people like get the fuck off custodial wallets. Get yourself here. Get yourself one of these. This is a hard wallet if you're going to get in blockchain. and get the fuck off the major exchanges. Get out of Coinbase, Binance, whatever. Like get on to find decentralized chains. Get yourself a hard wallet. You have your own private key. Only you know this unless you give it to somebody, unless somebody you give somebody your key information, then you're fucked. But it's all about responsibility. So, I mean, if you're going to use blockchain as an alternative, and then I also say I'm with you on the gold and the silver. Like, you want to diversify. I mean, getting the bottle caps for all like for crying out loud. I mean, that could be something to get into a Fallout 3 scenario. I mean, cigarettes. Prison uses cigarettes a lot. So there's a grow your own food. Find somebody that you can trade with. But I mean, crop wise. Like if you're growing tomatoes, maybe someone else you know is growing, I don't know, ghost peppers. You really want some ghost peppers. You really want to burn your mouth on. They really want some tomatoes to
You
go
want to
with their.
burn your ass if you're eating ghost peppers, dude. That shit's gonna come out just as hot as it was going in, man. Don't eat that shit.
Oh, I love ghost peppers. It's been a while since I've eaten them. If I ate them now,
Well,
I
so you're
probably
saying you
would.
like your ass on fire?
I love when the flames come out of my ass.
I'm just playing. I'm just playing. But
So,
one last thing before we go, or whatever. Another thing from Gold Telegraph. The president of the European Central Bank is warning that the world economy pressures. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me start this over. Apparently, I can't read today. The president of the European Central Bank is warning that the world economy faces pressures similar to those of the 1920s. Central banks are in a tiny box. They have done it to themselves. Currencies around the world are now rapidly getting debased versus gold. The thesis is paying out.
mhm. I mean, it's not surprising. We are in a pattern. We're literally reliving like the 2020s are realistically there. It's 1920. It's 1924 again. The difference is we've kind of we're in a recession, even though they like to say we're not. We're in a recession because of all the COVID shenanigans. You can't shut down economies, can't shut down countries, and then print excessive money. I mean, and not expect consequences. So we are in a recession. We've been in a recession since March of 2020, and we've gotten gradually worse. Whereas in the 20s, the 1920s, we had our little recession bubble as we moved on from the war economy, and the world did. I mean, 1920, 2021, we was the same scenario, but we kind of let everything dictate and liquidate, and the market kind of just corrected itself, and we stayed out of it. And so the 20s were booming, but you still had the same shenanigans, just on a less of a scale than it is today, with the Federal Reserve, with central banks all over the world, specifically in the West. You had malinvestment up the yin yang because the dollar, in most major currencies were pretty much, unless it was the Reich or the German mark, obviously. I mean, they were grossly valuable, and people were spending their money. They had more money, I mean, in their wages. I mean, they were buying property. They were getting in entrepreneurship was in a high wing. And then that came crashing down in 1929 with the stock market crash. And of course, the government got involved and made things worse, and we went into a depression. 29, we were going to come out of a recession. We were going into yet another recession because that's how markets work, booms, busts, just like the Austrian way. But when it comes to intervention, you drag the boom to last way too long by controlling interest rates and creating new money and fake value, you're gonna eventually lead into an enormous crash that's inevitable, and it's going to be an even longer depression. Whereas if you just stay out of it, you're going to have your bust, and then you're going to build back up. The bubble's going to build. You're going to have a fantastic boom, and then it's volatile. I mean, just like life on Earth, I mean, everything's chaotic. It's gonna it's gonna burst. A little hole in that bubble is gonna there's gonna be a little hole. It's gonna seep out a little bit. You're gonna have your little panic, and then you're gonna liquidate malinvestment, and then you're gonna get right back into it and start building your economy back up. And we're not doing that. So we're looking at probably we're on the verge of probably a Great Depression on a extreme measure. It's going to supersede the 30s, and it's probably going to be like I wouldn't be surprised if it's within like the next 2, 3 years
It's going
where
to be
you can't
catastrophic. It
yeah,
will
it's
be
going to be very
what's coming. It's not going to be a depression. It's not going to be a recession. It's going to be a complete collapse of society is what's coming. And not to give you a
yeah.
black pill or anything like that, you guys have the show, but like seriously, like what's to come is extremely
Hmm.
terrifying. And this is why we're doing this is to make you aware of what's coming and how to get ready. And the one way you can get ready is being self-sufficient.
Hmm.
Start growing your own food, raising your own meat if you can, get chickens, stuff like that, grow gardens. Please stack up on precious metals. You need a medium of exchange to get things,
Hmm.
but you also you really need to bring your sense of community back. I can't harp that,
Yeah.
enough that we got to get back to a sense of community instead of like,
Hmm.
hey man, neighbors don't talk to me or whatever. You're gonna have to go talk to your neighbors. You're gonna have to go love your neighbors. You're gonna have to do this.
Hmm.
That's just part of it. But also another thing that
Hmm.
food and ammo. Food and ammo will be a great median of exchange because people got to eat and you're going to need ammo. I don't know what to tell you
Hmm.
guys, but the way United States foreign policy is going right now, trouble's going to find its way here. I'm not
Hmm.
necessarily too worried about a civil war. I think it could possibly happen. Um, but I also believe if a civil war happened, it would be shut down extremely quick because they're going to come
Oh,
in with
yeah.
their drones and their tanks and shit like that, and you're only
Hmm.
going to get so far with your AKs and your ARs. So you know what I mean? Like the civil war will be shut down extremely fast. Um, but as
That's
far
why they built an army. That's why they made sure they built a standing army if the I mean post
this is
Civil
why you need
War.
militias. This
Yeah,
is why you have to have
yeah.
a militia. It's not a big
That's the
secret
yeah.
that
Speaking of that,
the
speak
Michigan
that's
militia is
oh.
one of the biggest, is probably the most well-known and biggest militia in the United
Hmm.
States. Believe it or not, it's communist
Hmm.
Michigan. But people know, do not come to Michigan and fuck around. Seriously,
Hmm.
they know this. We
Hmm.
have people who are armed and ready to party if trouble find its way here. Um,
Hmm.
not that I say that I want that. I don't want that at all. I don't want to ever see
No,
violence here. I don't want that. That's the last thing I want. But if trouble finds its way here,
but
you can bet your ass I'm going to dig my boots in the dirt, dude. If China and
hmm
Russia think they're going to come here and fuck around, or anybody from the Middle East think they're going to come here and fuck around, all of a
it
sudden the
wouldn't be.
left's going to be okay with us holding weapons of war. You know what I'm saying? It's going
It
to be
won't be
okay to have
China or
your
Russia.
ARs and your AKs and shit like that.
Yeah, it won't be China or Russia. China has its own problems right now. They're on the verge of economic collapse.
Oh no, I
So
wish, you know what? I should have
yeah,
seen some of those stories for the show because
yeah,
China's in bad shape. They're actually moving
yeah,
money around right now to kind
yeah.
of save their economy. It's kind
Hmm.
of wild. It
Yeah.
really is kind of wild. But like seriously, you guys, like
Hmm.
buy guns, buy ammo, stock up on food, get yourself some
Hmm.
precious metals because the days are coming where good men are going to have to do bad things.
Hmm.
I hate saying it. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. We have to be real on this show. I love you guys. That's why I do this. But Zach Attack, how can we find you, dude? You are Zach Attack. I've been calling him Zach Attack forever. He's Zach Attack, man.
I'm the Z-Man, as my mom would tell me. I was the
Right on.
Z-Man. Zack Attack is great though.
Rip,
So
Rip, Mama
yeah.
Kaiser. I wish,
So
I wish I could have got.
but
She,
I am I can be found on X at legacy_ZAK, legacy_Zach. So you can also find my co-host and my compadre Andrew Joseph also on X at AI Conan 90.
he's
We
shopping
are on
toupees right now, by the way.
yeah, he is. He's trying to get he's trying to get us to pay. He's trying to figure out if he wants he doesn't know if he wants a Marilyn Manson style or Elvis.
Sorry, Andrew.
Sorry. I gotta fuck with you. That's my boy. I've known him also since I was 15 years old. So he moved away and we still stayed in contact and now we're doing a fucking podcast together.
Love it. Love that so much.
So, but you can also find us. We do have Instagram. Just look for the Legacy Right. Haven't really been on it much. Find us on YouTube. Find us on the podcast sphere. Spotify is mainly the major outlet, but we're everywhere. And then we're doing live streams now. So we stream to X. So find Legacy_ZAK and come join the conversation on X or YouTube when we're going live on Friday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern. I gotta remember to say Eastern because different time zones. So,
Yeah, all this stuff plays into factors when it comes into podcasting. It really does.
yeah,
I'll never forget the
yep,
one time I had I was going to have somebody on and they were in California and I didn't even think anything of it. So I'm like, boom, boom, boom. We're going to meet at 4 o'clock. I'm sitting here and I'm sitting here and I'm sitting here. And finally I text him like, what the fuck, man? He's like, dude, it's not 4 o'clock yet or whatever. I'm like, it's 4 o'clock. What are you talking about, man? He's like, I'm in California. Shit. So I learned a hard lesson that day. You know what I mean?
hmm
And it's a funny story now, but I was like mortified. I'm like, why did he? I've been stood up. I was like the scorned woman who got stood up on a blind
hmm
date. I'm like, what the fuck?
You were the cat lady that decided to become a cat lady
That's right. That's
because
right. But dude,
because she
follow
hated.
Zack Attack, man. Follow Zack Attack. Seriously, he's one of the most underappreciated accounts on X on social media. The dude is
Maybe I want to be that. Maybe I
no,
want to be under the radar.
we want to grow your brand, dude. I want you to grow your brand. I want everybody to grow their brand, dude. I
hmm
want all of us in the sphere to grow our brands and we can join
hmm
forces and just take over and have one big network. That's what I want. But no,
One
seriously,
big.
you are great with history, like way better than me. Like I know history, but
hmm
not like you, dude. You're the history
Thank
buff,
you.
and
And Andrew, my co-host is Jamie. He's my Jamie. So he
oh,
Googles
nice,
everything.
nice. No, I
So
was trying to steal him. He wants him to be his Jamie too.
that's my Jamie Noel.
I love it, man. I love it.
You're more than welcome. We'll just combine what we'll do is we'll just combine the Legacy Right with Off the Wire and we'll just get a big giant studio and we'll just start doing Joe Rogan style podcasts with me and Noel. And Andrew's no longer on camera. He's just Googling away. We hear his voice chime in like, yeah, I found this.
That's so awesome, dude. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Please
Oh,
follow
thank
me
you.
on all socials, all things Buds in Reality. You know where to find me, dude. Hit them clicks. Give me the like, share, subscribes. Let's do the damn thing. Peace, love, and liberty. Y'all be good.
And find us both on TikTok.
Oh yeah, we're on TikTok now. Do we on
Tic Tac, the Tic Tac, the Chinese surveillance.
That's right. That's right. Love y'all. Be good.